Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling strangely guilty, even though you didn't actually do anything wrong? You replay the moment in your head. You explain yourself, and yet something still feels off. Manipulation rarely looks aggressive. In fact, the most effective manipulators never raise their voice. They make you doubt your own memory. In this video, you'll learn 7 subtle signs someone is manipulating you, and why it works so well psychologically. Once you recognize these patterns, you'll never hear certain phrases the same way again. Sign 1. They twist your words. You say one thing, and suddenly they respond to something you never actually meant. You spend more time clarifying your intentions than expressing your feelings. This is intentional because confusion weakens confidence, and a confused person is easier to control. Sign 2, you end up apologizing. The discussion starts about something they did, but somehow you are the one saying sorry. Manipulators redirect emotional responsibility. They don't solve the problem, they relocate the blame. Sign 3, you're too sensitive. Instead of addressing your concern, they evaluate your reaction. You're overthinking, you're dramatic, you're imagining things. This is emotional minimization, and its goal is simple: make you distrust your own perception. Sign 4, the fake apology. I'm sorry you feel that way. It sounds like accountability, but it isn't. A real apology accepts responsibility. A manipulative apology questions your reaction. Sign 5, hot and cold behavior. One day they are warm, attentive, and kind. The next day, distant and indifferent. This is not inconsistency. It is reinforcement psychology. Unpredictable rewards create emotional attachment stronger than consistent affection. Sign 6, they make you explain basic feelings. You feel hurt. Instead of comfort, you're forced into a debate. You begin justifying why your feelings are valid, and that's the trap. When you defend emotions, you stop observing behavior. Sign 7, you feel drained after interactions. After spending time with them, you feel mentally exhausted. Not angry, not sad, just depleted. Your mind has been working overtime trying to maintain emotional balance in an unbalanced dynamic. Manipulation works because it doesn't attack directly. It operates through doubt. When someone controls your perception of reality, they no longer need to control your actions. You will do it yourself. Many people don't recognize manipulation while it's happening, not because they are naive, but because manipulation often appears inside care, humor, or concern. The person doesn't insult you. They don't threaten you. Instead, they slowly reshape how you interpret reality. Over time, you stop asking, "Are they treating me fairly?" and start asking, "Am I being difficult?" Confusion is not an accident in manipulative relationships. It is a tool. When your brain tries to resolve mixed signals, it becomes focused on understanding, not evaluating. And while you are trying to understand them, you stop observing patterns. This is why manipulation is often discovered only after distance. You may notice you repeat your explanations. You clarify the same point again and again, not because you weren't clear, but because clarity is not the goal of the conversation. The goal is to keep you emotionally engaged. When you are explaining, you are investing, and investment creates attachment. Long exposure to manipulation changes behavior. You hesitate before speaking. You rehearse messages in your head. You overanalyze tone. Eventually, you don't trust your reactions anymore. And that is the real objective of manipulation: control without force. The first protection is awareness. Notice patterns, not isolated moments. Pay attention to how you consistently feel after interactions. Healthy relationships may include conflict, but they do not produce chronic confusion. If your clarity only returns when you are away from someone, that information matters. Imagine a simple situation. You tell someone you felt hurt by something they said. You are calm. You are not accusing them. You just want to talk. They pause, and then they sigh. Suddenly, the conversation changes direction. Instead of asking what hurt you, they say, "I can't believe you think I would do that intentionally." Now you feel uncomfortable. You begin reassuring them. The topic is no longer your feelings. The topic becomes their character. A few minutes later, you are apologizing for bringing it up. You leave the conversation confused. The problem was never discussed. But somehow, the emotional responsibility became yours. This is how manipulation works in everyday life, not through aggression, through emotional redirection. After repeated experiences like this, your brain adapts. Next time, you hesitate before expressing discomfort. You think, maybe it's not worth mentioning. Slowly, your boundaries move, not because you agreed, but because the emotional effort became exhausting. Manipulation does not force silence. It makes silence feel easier. The manipulative person does not see themselves as manipulative. From their perspective, they are defending themselves. That is why their reactions often seem sincere. This sincerity confuses people, because we assume intention must match emotion. But behavior reveals patterns more accurately than words. When you start observing patterns instead of individual conversations, you begin to notice something important. Healthy discussions resolve tension. Manipulative discussions relocate tension. Manipulation loses power the moment it is recognized, not because the other person changes, but because your perception does. You stop trying to win the conversation and start observing the behavior. Understanding this doesn't make you cold, it makes you free. One of the most common questions people ask is, can a manipulative person change? The answer is complicated. Change requires self-awareness, and self-awareness requires discomfort. But manipulation works precisely because the person avoids responsibility. If every conflict can be explained as someone else's fault, there is no reason to reflect. From their perspective, the strategy works. They get compliance, they avoid consequences, and the relationship continues. This is why many people wait for a moment of realization that never comes, not because change is impossible, but because change requires motivation. And a system that benefits someone rarely motivates them to alter it. The important shift is not asking, how do I make them understand? The important question becomes, why am I trying to convince someone who refuses to listen? Sometimes clarity does not come from winning the discussion. Sometimes clarity comes from recognizing the pattern.